The great chain smashes through the side of the skeleton tower in a shower of broken metal. It tears through the edge of the rig, it swings round towards me, and it brings with it the enormous wheel from below. My screams become one of those of the siren, and a pair of rough hands grab me by the back of my jacket. I am hastily hauled across the platform through the rain as the chain swings by. It becomes clear that the links run through the colossal iron wheel, and because of them, they tear up the edge of the rig and smash the loading bays and the remaining cranes to shreds, as easily as if they were made of paper. The roof of the rig's central hub is destroyed in a hail of shattering beams and concrete as the chain smashes relentlessly right through it. The hands release from the scruff of my neck, and I slump to the wet ground with a splash. None of this feels real. It's like I'm in a dream, a terrible, swirling nightmare. I turn to look up at my savior, and a flash of lightning out of the sea illuminates the profile of the commander. His good eye shining in keen copper, the other shrouded in shadow. His coat is torn and his beard whipped wild. "To your station, lad," he bellows in a voice like the rippling thunder. Glancing between me and the chain, "This night's not over yet, I tell you now." I scramble back through the puddles and grab a hold of the nearby rail, trying to bring myself to stand. "What the hell is this?" I shout at him. "What are we going to do?" "Our duties," he barks back. More helicopters fly out overhead, struggling through the wind. An officer approaches and stops to a shaking salute as the shuddering chain is steadily dragged out to the sea overhead. The rig trembles. "Confirmed, Commander," the officer shouts. "Catastrophic failure in the accused section, but it's too late, they say. There's nothing we can do now." "It'll be dealt with come in the morning," the commander replies. "Tell me about the pneumatics, the emergency reels. What have we got?" "Pneumatic reel 1 is gone, Commander," the officer replies. "Completely destroyed. Reels 2 and 3 are fit for operation, though reel 3 has been damaged." "Get them affixed to the tower, or hell, what's left of it." Soldiers spring past in manic squads across the platform. The battleships fire into the waves in great roiling booms. "Both of them?" the officer asks uneasily. "But, Commander, the chain's current duress would suggest," he stutters. If we lose both the reels." "Get them affixed!" the commander roars. "Now! Fucking now!" The officer swiftly brings up his arm into a salute and sprints off through the broken, shifting shadows of the rails and the metalwork. "Don't make me ask you again," the commander grunts at me, then turns to take his leave. But I call out after him, foolishly and desperately over the groan of the storm. Never in my life have I felt such dread. I am drowning in it. It feels like the end of the world. "What is this place, Commander? You have to tell me. What's down there?" I know, all right? I know about the entity. What is it? What are you hiding?" The commander stops in his tracks. His coat ripples and thrashes in the wind, in time with its distorted mirror image, reflected in the flooded platform below. He lights up from all angles in glaring orange, then blue. Orange, then blue. Random bursts of white from the searchlights, from the lighting, and from the artillery fire of the distant warships accompany the colors of the sirens in intermittent flashes. The shadows thrown are ever-changing and void black. He swivels on the spot and marches right up to me. I stumble back in alarm, but he grabs my collar. "Questions, questions, questions," he mutters, loudly above the clamor. "I hate when the questioners are brought on board the rig. You know that? I fucking hate it!" His eyes are wide and mad as he begins to drag me across the platform. His worn and hardened features, his white beard. They are deceptive, I now realize. The commander is strong, and must be years younger than his looks would suggest. "You know where they love questions, Reg? That is your name, isn't it? The submarines." His words register sharp. A tide of panic crashes against my broken constitution. I try to fight the commander away, but he trips me, throws me to the ground. "They're struggling for crew," he says. "They weren't prepared for active deployment tonight. I was about to order them down anyway. But you know what? I think they'd benefit from your expertise. You're of no use to me on the rig tonight." Visions of being trapped in a submarine flash through my head. Claustrophobic, cold, unforgiving metal, surrounded by only the icy, churning black waters, and the horror beneath the waves. The pressure growing as we sink deeper and deeper. "No, no, I won't," I shouted. His features are shadowed once again, but his silhouette shines bright against the thunderous night sky. "So, you know about the entity. Well, you're not the only one who knows things, Reg. I know that you abandoned your station tonight. I know that you shirked your one duty to the rig. And I know that the hydraulic section, during your departure, has catastrophically failed." With every no, he takes another step closer, his voice rising. My heart lurches in distress. "Get your ass in that fucking submarine, and maybe I'll forget a few things. You understand me? Now on your feet. Are you a man or a fucking dog?" He hauls me up and drags me through a corridor of crisscrossed pipework and down onto a lower platform on the opposite side of the rig. A section with an edge that remains crack-free, unharmed by the drag of the colossal and broken iron wheel. He squats and hauls open a door in the ground with a clank. It reveals a rusted ladder that extends down towards the sea. He looks at me. Oh God. My options whirl around in my head to the beat of the siren's wails. I force my rain-soaked fringe from my eyes. What the hell do I do? What can I do? Run? Could I run somewhere? And what then? If by some miracle the rig survives the night, then they'll find you eventually, won't they? There's nowhere to run to. And you'll be court-martialed. Can civilians even be court-martialed? Would I just be shot on the spot? Or worse? Fuck. Forget being court-martialed. This is about your life. I swear with frustration. And what if the chain pulls the entire rig into the sea? What then? The submarine might literally be the safest possible place for you. But why the commander's change of heart? What the hell is his game here? All these thoughts and more froth and bubble like the foam of the gray waves below. But at the end of the day, there's no point pretending that my decision wasn't already made. In times of intense stress, chaos and disarray, when your options are as complex as mine, it is easier to simply follow the orders of the person in charge. Maybe with hindsight, I would have acted differently. I would have come up with some genius plan. But I don't have that luxury in the fire of the moment. So I furrowed my brow. I call the commander a prick. And I ease myself onto the ladder, bracing myself against its icy rungs. "See you on the other side," the commander shouts at me. And I see him raise a radio from his belt to his mouth. He kicks the trapdoor closed as I begin my shaky descent. Down I climb, rung by slippery rung. The sound of the sea below grow louder. There's a monster down there. I'm sure of it. What else could it be? The entity. Rung after rung. "Oi!" shouts a megaphone-distorted voice from below, breaking my train of thought, and I nearly slip from the ladder in fright. I grab a tighter hold and twist my neck to see below. There's not much of the ladder left. It goes down a couple more meters, and then the end is lost to the swirling, swelling waters. The uppermost hub of the great gray submarine has surfaced beside. It rocks subtly in the churn. I didn't even hear it rise. A man over in hydraulics has opened the hatch on top of the hull, his upper half visible. He waves at me. "Hydraulics?" His voice blares through the megaphone. I nod as obvious as I can. I force the fear from the lungs to shout out a reply. "Yes. Fucking yes, that's me." "Great. Jump," he replies. "Jump? Jump? I can't bloody well jump. Shouldn't there be a boat or a bridge or—" "I can't hear you, mate," megaphone replies. "Come on, quick as you can." I bang my head against the ladder in anguish. But before I can psych myself out any further, I use the adrenaline to the best of my ability. Powering down the remaining rungs of the ladder, turning, calculating, and I push myself off. My legs kick through the ice and the salt of the sea air. My arms flail, and I land with a thud on the hull of the submarine. Megaphone reaches over and grabs my jacket, and he hauls me through the hatch and down onto the vessel's body. I use the rungs of the submarine's ladder to slow my descent, but essentially crash to the floor in a rain-soaked heap. I roll onto my side, coughing. I'm in hell, I choke out. No, you're not, Megaphone replies grimly, helping me to my feet. He then climbs the rungs, reaching up and draws the hatch closed with a slam. The sounds of the storm and sea are muffled instantly, largely replaced by a low and all-surrounding rumble. Terry, he says, sticking out his hand. I take it, shivering. Reg. Thanks for coming down, Reg. We appreciate it. I really didn't have much of a... I feel my surroundings shift. I flinch as my ears pop, one after the other. We're going down. This is all so sudden, all of this. It's just go, go, go. It's insane. Only moments ago, I was watching the chain get ripped out of the tower itself. What could do that? What kind of thing would have such power? And what if the whole length of the chain unravels? What then? The recent memories flash through my head, and I have to grab a hold of a nearby line of pipe to keep myself from staggering. Terry looks at me with sympathy. Hang in there, mate. You're better off in here than up there, trust me. They tell us they're losing the chain. I nod, breathing deeply in and out. In and out. Come on, I'll show you the exhaust valves. They aren't operating quite as they should be. Wouldn't normally be cause for major concern, but you know. These are relatively uncharted waters, if you'll pardon the pun. I don't respond, but straighten and follow him to the engine rooms further below. The rumble of the water around us is paradoxically rather calming, if I don't think about it too much. Terry continues. We're glad to have you. Our normal hydraulics guys were stolen yesterday for maintenance on the Hodder. The what? He gives me a look. Don't you know? The drill. It's an acronym. Hydraulics Operated Deep Drill. We call it the Hodder. Military folks sure love their acronyms. I remember what I had read in the report, in the secret file. All drilling operations to cease immediately. 1986. Report to Commander R. Cleese. I thought they stopped all the drilling. Yeah, for oil, obviously. But the Hodder's tiny. They send that thing down on rare occasions for samples from the seabed. Bewildered and struggling to process, I come to a stop in the engine room. Terry clasps me on the shoulder and directs me to the tools, then takes his leave, telling me where to find him if I need him. And so, like a programmed machine, I just set to work. I do what I do best. That's why I'm here, after all. I look around me as I work. There are no windows. I haven't seen any since entering the submarine. I quite like it. I can sort of pretend that none of this is happening. I can pretend I'm back on my own rig, working happily. I haven't been blackmailed into a military submarine. I'm not trapped hundreds and hundreds of meters beneath the sea. I was never sent to an uncharted rig in the middle of the ocean. I am not at risk of losing my life in a world of unimaginable nightmares. And I am not at the immediate mercy of an unspeakable terror that sleeps beneath the surface. Except it's not sleeping anymore. Is it, Reg? I push these thoughts aside and work as best as I can on the hydraulics before me. I don't know how much time passes, but once I believe I have completed my task to a satisfactory degree, I clamber back up through the levels and head through the submarine's corridors. They're narrow and cold. The clanks of my footsteps echo and reverberate softly around the walls. They're also curiously empty. I always imagined military submarines to be busier. I do, however, find some other people when I push through the metal door at the end of the corridor and into a room near the front and top of the submarine. A room affixed to the central hub. The level of light is low and green. The room is illuminated by a series of dim bulbs overhead. To my surprise, the front of this room is curved and not made of metal. It has instead been built with glass, or at least some other thick, transparent material. Beyond is only the deep and dark of the sea. The submarine's weak beam lights catch on nothing but water. There are 5 others in here with me. One is clearly the captain, a man in gray. He turns in his chair and nods at me. Another is Terry, who smiles. I'm still taken by the glass. What the hell is this? I ask. Military subs don't have walls of glass, do they? I thought they were solid metal. Terry shoots me another questioning look. Well, of course they don't. But this isn't a typical sub, is it? Some of the other members of the crew have turned to look at me with similar curiosity. One of them, I realize to my bewilderment, is shrouded in what appears to be religious robes of some kind. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I choke out. What are you doing on board? Well, I'm the submarine chaplain, he replies cautiously, raising an eyebrow. What? You mean like a priest or whatever? Why would they need one of those on a submarine? Everyone is staring at me now. The confusion on their faces, even greater perhaps than the confusion on mine. It becomes clear that I am not the type of person they were expecting to get sent to them. Their silence is sharp. The engine grinds. The sea rumbles. And then several of them lean forward and start asking me questions at once. Wait, you were brief, right? You've done the exposure training. You do know about the entity, right? Did Do you even get the psychological assessment? No, I stammered in return. I really don't. I just wanted to. Fuck! Man in the gray beard shouts suddenly, running his hands through his hair. Who the hell sent you down here exactly? The commander did, I replied with frustration. For fuck's sake. What the hell is his problem? This is fucking insane. You shouldn't be here. I know, I splurted out in retort. The chaplain steps towards me. He takes my hands in his and speaks earnestly. Are you religious, son? Are there any spiritual convictions you feel comfortable drawing from? Not really, no, I replied. Look, if someone could tell me what's going on, I would really, really appreciate it. Is there a passage from the Bible I could read out for you? Something to help ease your soul? The chaplain asks. I pull my hands away and grimace. I'm sure he's only trying to be helpful, but to be honest, his presence here is freaking me the fuck out. What kind of submarine needs a chaplain? I don't even know any Bible passages. Not really. I know a couple, maybe. The classics. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. From dust we came, and to dust we shall return. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. He sure does. I mumble this last passage out loud. The chaplain nods at me. Yes, the Book of Job, Chapter 1. A work of true literary prowess. Alfred Lord Tennyson himself called it the greatest poem of ancient and modern times. Alfred Lord Tennyson. Where have I heard that name before? The gears turn in my head. I could see before me so many pieces of the puzzle in my mind's eye. I just cannot fit them together. The eyes of the crew bore into me as we stand together, cast in the grim, green glow of the submarine's luminescent bulbs. I'd like a reading from the Book of Job then, please, I say quietly, as the submarine pushes through the deep. The radar blinks silently. The chaplain nods and draws a small Bible from his pocket. Certainly, lad. Any particular passage? The numbers scratched on the wall in the rig library return to the forefront of my mind. 41, 1, 34. Yes, actually, I mutter. Chapter 41, verses 1 to 34. The chaplain furrows his brow but nods. I'm not familiar with this particular passage, I must admit. He thumbs through the pages, and as he scans over the lines, he pauses and shoots me a look. I hold his gaze, and, perhaps reluctantly, the chaplain begins his reading. His voice is deep and somber, every word a wave upon the rocks. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook, or tie down its tongue with a rope? The atmosphere in the room tightens at once, but the chaplain licks his teeth and continues uninterrupted. the cadence of his speech like drums, dark drums drawing us down into the depths. Can you put a cord through its nose, or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you, for you to take it as your slave for life? Can you fill its hide with harpoons, or its head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle and never do so again. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it, overpowering. None are fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. The chaplain's chest rises and falls in time to the beat of his words, but I am not audibly aware of his drawing in of any breath. He dutifully reads on through the verse. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. His readings bring me nothing but distress, and I can see the distress reflected in the face of the crew around me. Their features caught in the shadows of the rippling green. But they can no more ask him to stop than I. It is hypnotic. The chaplain goes on, but as sure as the night must fall with the sunset, he too must eventually draw to a close. And he does so, with a voice that shudders and ripples down through my core. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature with no fear inside. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all who hold pride. Shapes emerge through the darkness ahead. The external beams of the submarine reveal a section of the great chain through the murk, and I watch as we drift past it. There is energy in this place, in this submarine, in this secret world beneath the stormy seas. I drop my gaze to meet the eyes of the captain, the man in gray. Please, just tell me, I whisper. Tell me about the entity. A beat passes. The man in gray turns his back to me and looks out into the water, adjusting the submarine's course. But he replies, "The entity was discovered by the old drills in 1986. He says somberly. We don't know what it is, to be frank. Nobody does. I admit, however, that it is entirely possible for the folks at the top to know more, and they're just keeping the information a secret. The sonars give us an idea, a rough picture of the entity's form, but we have never been able to see it all at once. We believe it to be asleep, but it's always churning, ever-changing, writhing in the deep." Shiver passes through me. The man in gray speaks on. The entity seems to be more or less alert with the varying cycles of the moon. in different seasons of the year. We use firepower when necessary to try and push the entity in directions we deem desirable, and keep it down with the chains. There are further chains connected to the other 3 primary rigs: UKB, the Norwegian rig, and the Danish rig. The chains were easier to attach at the beginning. He swallows. It's harder now, they tell me. They're afraid. Afraid that the entity is going to wake up. Though, given tonight's reports from the rig, it's quite possible that the entity's sleep has come to an end. My head throbs, and my mouth has gone death dry. But I lick my lips and give voice to my clouded thoughts. So, why don't you just destroy it? Nuke it or whatever. Surely it must be more cost-effective and less dangerous than whatever the fuck is being done right now, right? It's not about the entity itself, Reg, says Terry to my left. What do you mean? How can it not be about the fucking monster? The massive, sprawling... Intel suggests, Reg, that the entity is sitting on something, slumbering above it. Something important. Important beyond our understanding. The current working assumption is that the entity is situated above what we believe to be a gate. Of what manner exactly, we don't know. But the fear is... He sighs. The fear is that if the entity goes, if we actually succeed in destroying it, then whatever lies beneath the gates, it would be wide open. I finish. Unguarded, perhaps. Terry nods. And we don't know what might come through from the other side, he says. Shadows dance in the corners of my vision. A deep and terrible cosmic fear rushes through me. I have never before felt such a sudden and powerful surge of vicious realization, of understanding, of seeing for the first time how utterly, truly tiny I am. How comically insignificant. I am barely comparable to the smallest spark in the shortest wire in the most purposeless machine on the entire rig. Bile rises up from my throat, and I choke it down. My stomach contracts, my breaths become sharp and shallow, in time to the sudden beeps of the sonar. And I am vaguely aware of everyone rushing back to their stations. I can feel the submarine further adjust its course. The chaplain is muttering under his breath, a low and steady chanting, and the shifting gray-black shapes beyond the submarine's windows light up a little brighter, with a boost to the beams. The beams reflect off massive lines of chain, all interwoven and connected, dragged across the submarine's field of vision through the deep. They're huge, so impossibly huge. And the water, in places beneath and around the chains, hardens. It shimmers in ways that don't make sense. It absorbs the light like the black of space, and yet somehow seems to return it in strange new patterns across its form. Shifting gray to green to black, over and over. I cannot look away. I am aware of shouting voices. The vessel shudders and fires. Torpedoes are launched through the water ahead. And when they connect with their target, with the terror beyond size, they flash, just for a second, providing only the briefest of glimpses of their surroundings. They show me colossal, writhing, long and interwoven limbs, jointless and furious. A flash. Further sections of chain that ensnare them, pulling taut, grinding. A flash. Great black and shifting rune-like lines and markings across these titanic appendages. I can hear a song. It flows with the roaring beyond in the deep. The melody, jarring at first, changes rapidly. It becomes quickly soothing, and the sound of it makes me feel. It makes me feel calm. It comes with none of the dread I felt with the words of the chaplain. Instead, it makes me feel whole, like I matter. I take a step closer to the glass. The submarine weaves its way through the chains. A flash. I see the material of the great twisting limbs pulled taut over something skeletal, the size of a mountain. A flash. I see one of the limbs thunder through the dark water, right in front of the glass. The submarine takes a hit and I stumble to the floor. A siren blares. But still I do not look away. A flash, and I see an eye. Out there in the dark. I look into it, and it looks back into me. The membrane peels back, and a brighter eye pushes through. The pupil, long and rectangular. The pupil breaks apart into smaller circles beyond count as I watch, mesmerized. And it splits open further. The surface of the eye rolls back to reveal only darkness, pitch void, nothing. And the world goes black. I dream only of the song. Its melody does not dissipate when I wake. I am in a medical bay of sorts. Not sure where. The presence of the commander at the far side of the room would suggest. I am back on the rig. A window is visible in the corridor beyond the open door. The pale light that streams through would imply that the rig survived the night. For a moment, we exchange no words. Then I break the tension. You saved the rig, then? Aye, the commander replies. My head spins. My joints ache like hell, and the song is still playing. You found a way to calm it? The entity? There's always a way, the commander replies grimly. His eyes do not leave mine. He clenches his jaw. Another pause, then. Thank you, I whisper. The man's eyebrows shoot up. His surprise at these words is clear. Thank you, he repeats. Why the hell would you be thanking me? You knew I wanted answers, right? I reply with a weak grin. But you weren't able to tell me directly. That's why you sent me to the submarine. So that I could find some? The commander chews his tongue. He does not return my grin. Is that what you think? He replies quietly, his voice strained. A flicker of emotion passes over his face. Regret? Pity? Or perhaps guilt? He turns away. You seem like a decent guy, Reg, he says to me. I'm sorry they sent you here, truly. I'm sorry I sent you down to the submarine. In the state you were in last night, you would have done nothing for the rig, but drum up further panic. And whilst the failure of the hydraulics section cannot be placed entirely on your absence, we do not know how the night might have unfolded if you had remained at your post. I swallow. The sounds of the song fade momentarily. Did anyone, did anyone die last night? I'm not sure if I even want to know the answer. But my compulsion for information bids me ask regardless. Commander sighs. 14 from the rig, and we lost the destroyer. Copters are still plucking survivors out of the sea. A destroyer. They lost an entire destroyer. I try to imagine the chaos that took place in the waters whilst I was beneath the surface in the submarine. How did it go down? Did the entity breach the surface? Was the warship torn in half like a toy? Smashed into pieces by a length of rogue chain? Crushed into shrapnel to the drums of the hammering thunder? I wonder if it had been Captain Iron's destroyer. I wonder if he made it out alive. There's no way my absence was responsible for the destruction of the tower, for the damage caused by the chain. There's no way. There's just no way. I was a part of a team of 10. 10 others. I couldn't have had that much impact. There's just no way. But still, these rationalizations do little to ease the guilt. The song helps. It returns. It soothes me. The commander tips his cap, his expression grim, and makes to depart. But he pauses at the door and turns back to me one last time. "Reg," he says, "do yourself a favor. Just keep your head down, do your work, and take the ship to the debrief in Norway in 3 days' time." His good eye shines with sorrow before he turns to leave. "And quit snooping around. I know you were in the backroom cabinets. If I catch you in there again, I'll throw you overboard." An attempt at a joke, I think. He chuckles awkwardly, and I chuckle back. But the air is one of sadness. The song helps. It mellows me. I listen to it play through my head as the commander leaves, and his footsteps echo away down the corridor. And for the next 2 days, I follow the commander's advice. I try my hardest. The chain is gradually hauled back in, pneumatic reels affixed to the groaning under the strain. Supposedly, hopefully, doing their jobs. Helicopters bring us parts and grids of metal for repairs. Platforms are clearly of debris. The work goes on. But I am present only in body. My mind twists and turns and constantly swirls. I dwell upon the mysterious scratchings left by figs on the library wall, the true nature of the entity, the things I heard and saw in the dark beneath the icy waves. I think about the files locked away. I know the combination. I could go back. I could try and learn more. The gate. I could try and find out what lies beneath the gate. I wonder how they managed to stop the entity, if it's truly awake. And the song just keeps playing. I find myself humming along to its haunting melody. Other workers shoot me glances as the days progress. I have to keep checking myself. The song agitates and stresses my thoughts and theories into a fever. I begin to wonder if there are ways back onto the submarine. Just for another look. One more look at the entity. That's all I need. Just one more look. One more look. I think about the eye. Terrible. And yet, incredible. The following nights are eventful, as I had come to expect. But none are so wild and chaotic as the night that the chain was torn from the tower. The storm rages on, but the warships are not called into action. They watch cautiously from the sidelines out at sea, as the waves crash ceaselessly against their hulls. And on the 5th day, I find myself here, in the break room, enjoying a rare and not entirely within the rules burst of Wi-Fi, typing out my experiences into this email to you, Figs. Apologies for the formatting. I wanted the words to flow as my thoughts did at the time the events took place. I'm breaking the Secrets Act here, so don't screw me over. Besides, the connection keeps dropping. I'm not sure if this email will even ever get to you. Maybe if it does, this will be the time you finally reply to me. I hope you're alright, mate, wherever you are. A window in the wall beside me shows the approaching storm that gathers in the distance. Lightning cracks silently against the horizon, and the hairs on my forearms rise. I've taken a risk. I've gone against the commander's advice. An opportunity has arisen, you see. The hotter, the little drill that Terry told me about, is going down to the seabed tonight to collect samples. You can fit people inside it, about a dozen or so. I requested to go down with them, down to the bottom of the sea, just for a chance at another glimpse. A glimpse of the entity. Not that I told them that, of course. I was refused, but I was informed by one of the officers that the pneumatic operated deep drill will also be going down there a little later in the night, for the same purpose, I presume. I've had a little look around it. It's a strange-looking thing, like a big metal square. Well, not that big. Big enough for maybe 6 or 7 people. Connected to the rig via tubes and pipes and cables. The floor is made of 2 different types of metals, with a crack that runs down the middle. And they need volunteers. They're here in the break room with me now, waiting to be allowed on board. They're all chatting excitedly, asking all sorts of questions, guessing what they might find or see down there in the dark. And I'm going with them. I have to. I have to know. I just have to. I wish you could hear the song, Figs. It's like nothing I've ever heard before. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Anyway, I'd better sign off here. I think they're calling for us. Hopefully, mate, I'll get to see you soon. All the best. Reg.
Chronicler here. We here at Creepy Spaghet would like to thank Darkly Gathers for allowing us to tell their story. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on these terrible tales, and make sure to check out the author in the links below. If you're interested in having your story narrated, be sure to reach out to our humble overseer, as he continues his journey to pull the darkest stories from the infinite depths of the internet. Until next time, fiends. And remember, we are darkness.